Welcome back, wrestling fans. The match is to begin in just a few moments here on the New Dimension Wrestling Power Hour, but we have a very special treat for you here this evening, wrestling fans. A true legend in the wrestling business, the fabulous Moolah, joining us right now here. And Moolah, thank you for coming out to this big New Dimension Wrestling show tonight.
Thank you for inviting me, Chris.
Well, Moolah, as you know, you need no introduction in any arena in this world, known world-renowned. You've fought the best ladies wrestlers in the world, both past, present, and possibly even the future. What is the fabulous Moolah doing now? Haven't seen you on the television wrestling scene, but we know you still are active wrestling. And what is Moolah doing these days?
Well, I don't do too much television wrestling. I like to go where the moolah is. And you don't make that much money on TV. It's mostly an advertisement deal. But right now, I do wrestling matches, and not every night like I used to be, but maybe 8 or 10 a month. And I also have a wrestling school here in Columbia, South Carolina. And in case you want to call the number, it's 803-782-6236. And we train men and women. I'm also the president of the association that we founded back in 1984, which is called the Ladies International Wrestling Association, and it's a non-profit organization, and we are trying to raise money to build a retirement center for disabled professional wrestlers, and we really do need that. And we've been working hard now. This is our 14th year, and we have a couple of conventions every year. Every year we have one in Las Vegas in June. This year we're having one in Myrtle Beach in September. And I would appreciate anything that anybody could do to help us get this thing going, because there's a lot of wrestlers that are down and out, that's been hurt. And as you know, Chris, in this business, if you get hurt and you don't save your money, too bad, so sad. So that's most of the people, most of the wrestlers, they just have a good time and spend their money when they make it. And there's a lot of them in bad situations at this time. And namely, Johnny Valentine is the one that got me interested in doing this foundation. And he was in a plane accident in Myrtle Beach back some years ago. And I just saw Johnny down in Charleston at the Legends reunion, and he was still on his walker, and we helped him up in the ring, and that was the saddest moment I think I've had in a long time. I think everybody in the building was crying, and that was one reason that I wanted to start this foundation, and I just hope we can keep it going so we can have a nice place for the wrestlers to stay, and we want to have a recreation room where they can go and watch themselves on their videos from years back, and what could be better therapy? You know, so that's what we're really working hard for. And my school, and I have real estate, and I stay busy all the time.
It sure does. And wrestling fans, if you are interested in the foundation, we will be giving you that address both on the screen and verbally to you later in the Power Hour. Moolah, you've been wrestling now for several decades in the professional wrestling ranks. What do you see that is much different now at wrestling today versus when, say, 20, 30 years ago in the wrestling business? And how has women's wrestling changed over that time as well?
Chris, it's hard to even talk about it, because as far as I'm concerned, there's no wrestling today, very little. If you go to LIWA, which is our organization, we have the regular wrestling that when I was wrestling all the time back in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and the first 90s. But now there's just mostly burlesque and sex, really, and that's not what I'm interested in. When they asked me today on the radio what did I think about the wrestling today, and I said, well, I'd rather not talk about it because I'm a lady wrestler and I'm not talking about strippers.
Sure, I understand where you're coming from. I know you very well know Vince McMahon Jr. and obviously Vince McMahon Sr. I would presume that when Vince Jr. took over the World Wrestling Federation back in the mid-'80s, what was your relationship working in the World Wrestling Federation? I believe you were still with them when they actually exploded back in the mid-'80s at one time. I don't know if you were still affiliated with them, but what was that like?
Yes, I am still affiliated with them, and the McMahons are part of my family. And I was wrestling for, I call him Daddy Vince, which is Vince Jr.'s dad. I was wrestling for him when Vince Jr. was just a little boy. And his dad was one of the most wonderful people I ever met, and his mother, and they're both deceased. And I miss them very much. And Vince Jr. and his wife Linda and his whole family, they're wonderful people. And I said to Vince one day, what would your dad say? And he says, I don't know, but I imagine he's flipping over in his grave. But he says this is the 90s and you have to go with the flow.
As wrestling is progressing into the new millennium, do you ever see wrestling going back to what it once was, say, of 20, 30 years ago? Or is wrestling just going down a path now that is just unpredictable at this point?
No, I think that people are getting tired of what they're seeing today. And I know that we've had a lot of people come up to us and say, after our Golden Girls extravaganzas, we book the past, the present, and the future ladies in that. And they come up to us and say, you know, that was just wonderful. We haven't seen wrestling, real wrestling, since you was wrestling for Vince back in the 80s. Sure. And I think it's going to come back to real wrestling again, and I do hope so.
That's great. One last question. I know you're getting ready for your match tonight against Exotic Jezebel, a newcomer to New Dimension Wrestling. We don't know much about her. Any insight on this woman that's going after the ladies' world title up for grabs tonight?
No, I've seen her in a couple of matches, and she's a big girl, and she does a lot of flying, and she looks pretty tough, but I'm ready.
That's good. Wrestling fans, the fabulous Moolah. Moolah, as always, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to share your thoughts with the wrestling fans. On behalf of New Dimension Wrestling, it's greatly appreciated.
Thank you so much.
Hey, coming right up, the New Dimension Wrestling Power Hour. Stay tuned, fans. 5 big matches coming your way, topped off with a big ladies' world title match coming at you after this commercial break.